Hello and welcome to episode 68 of This Week in Germany. We'll be bringing the world to Germany and Germany to the world with news for the week beginning the 20th of April 2015. My name's Daniel.
And my name's Rob. Each week we feature stories from the news, society, and culture in the English language. If you want to find out more, including ways to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, SoundCloud, and Spotify, head over to our website, thisweekingermany.de.
So, it's now time for episode 68. How are you feeling, Rob?
I'm feeling sick. I've been sick half the week.
Oh, man. Poor you.
I know. I got the sniffles. I mean, it's nothing major. It's just the sniffles.
Okay, that's all right. So, what do you have coming up on today's program? Quite an interesting one this week.
Well, I am quite excited about the destination, like I am every week. We're going to be looking at the Munich City Museum.
Oh, nice, cool. Is it one of those good-looking, really beautiful, old-style museums?
Ah, definitely. And this place is massive, too. It's a really huge museum, and it gives a lot of insight both into the city, plus it has a lot of extra stuff as well. I'll tell you about it.
That's absolutely great. And, of course, if you want to check out the photos for that, then you can go to our website, which is...
thisweekingermany.de?
Yes, that's correct. You got it right.
I didn't know this was a trick question or something. Okay.
No, it's correct.
You're a tricky guy.
Oh, well, thank you. No, that's not a compliment. Also, we have a German of the Week this week as well.
Günter Grass.
Yes, the guy who he died this week, and he was a
Nobel Prize winning in literature.
Yes, he won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and he wrote a book called The Tin Drum. Is that right?
It is, and besides that, though, there has been a little bit of controversy about him that we'll get into as well.
And you also have some news in brief coming up later as well, as always.
Yep, there's been some important things that have happened this week, such as the memorial service for victims of the German wings tragedy, as well as there's been new data retention guidelines set by the federal government.
Okay, very, very interesting. And there's lots of action going on our website as well, so if there's any of the features that you'd like listening to this week, so it could be that you really love Destination Germany, or that you always want to listen to our top story, well, all of the clips, and when it's all written out, those are on the website as well, so it's written out articles that you can read the whole thing, so that's really cool. All on thisweekingermany.de, and there's a little features button at the top as well. You click on the features button and you can see all the different things that you can look at. So if you want to go to the Film Club feature, that's at the features button. If you want to go to Destination Germany, that's at the features button. You can get all of our content in one place, which is really cool.
Yeah, so if you don't want to spend a whole 30 minutes listening to it like one afternoon, and you just need that fix for your destination, then just click on that destination link and you can get all the destinations.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So you've been well trained. So, yeah, and also I wrote an article this week, which is exclusively on the website, all about why Germany is Europe's #1 economy. So not only is Germany going through like a good patch at the moment because of very good economic climate, but also Germany's built on some solid foundations. So I explain all of that on the website, thisweekingermany.de. So shall we get started with our top story?
Let's do it.
So yes, this week there was a meeting of the G7 foreign ministers in Lübeck, which is a town in Germany. And the G7 countries are Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, the US, and also the European Union is represented there as well. So it's a meeting of the countries which have basically the most wealthy countries in the world. I think it represents something like $260 trillion of global wealth. So
wow.
They're very powerful countries involved in this.
Hey, weren't there 8 countries? Wasn't it called the G8 at one point?
Yes, and that's exactly the question that I put to Frank Jordans, who's a correspondent for the Associated Press, who I talked to about the G7 ministers meeting in Lübeck earlier this week.
Indeed, it used to be the G8 until last year, when Russia lost its membership of this exclusive club because the other members felt that it wasn't appropriate to have Russia at the top table, given its support for the separatist rebels in eastern Ukraine. So they downsized to the G7. That's France, Germany, Italy, Canada, Britain, Japan, and the United States.
So all of these countries coming together, it was the foreign ministers meeting this week. What was the meeting about, and what was discussed?
Well, the foreign ministers met ahead of the big G7 summit, which is going to take place in Bavaria in June. And they met in Lübeck this week because it gives them an opportunity to discuss international issues with their peers rather than have everything focused on the heads of government, which is what's obviously going to happen in June. And they had a lot on their agenda. There's a lot going on in the world, conflicts in the Middle East, such as Libya, Yemen, Syria, Iraq. Then there's the conflict in eastern Ukraine, which the German foreign minister pointed out was only 2 hours away from Lübeck. And then they had issues such as Ebola to discuss, climate change, which has sort of slipped off the international agenda a little bit lately. Yes, another issue was the democratic transitions in Africa, such as the recent Nigerian election. And they also discussed maritime security, which was appropriate given that Lübeck back in the 12th to 14th century was a Hanseatic port city which was plagued by pirates. And the Hanseatic League managed to clamp down on that by sort of bundling together their efforts and cracking down on piracy in the Baltic.
So a very appropriate location then for this meeting. So lots of people get the impression that these foreign ministers come together, they have 24 hours together, and they go away. What possibly could they agree on in this time? Was anything agreed upon? Was anything agreed upon at the meeting?
Well, that's the thing. The G7 meeting isn't really a forum for making decisions about things. It's more an opportunity to discuss important issues and to decide which direction to move in, to formulate a common position. And that is basically what they did. The foreign ministers came out with a very long statement at the end in which they touched on several dozen points that they discussed. It is difficult to imagine that they really had in-depth discussions about all of these issues, but they will have had an opportunity to discuss several aspects of each of those issues and see whether there were perhaps things that one country or another felt very strongly about. And this is important when they then go back to their capitals and instruct their own diplomats on how to proceed at the United Nations, in the Security Council, in other forums where actual decisions are made, including at national level. So this was very much, let's call it a thinking retreat for the foreign ministers.
That's a very poetic way of putting it, Frank. Very good. So, bringing it back to Germany, are these meetings important for Germany? After all, the country has been taking more of a proactive role in foreign policy, as we've been seeing with the negotiations with the nuclear deal with Iran and in the Ukraine conflict recently.
Yes, I would say that they are important for Germany. This is just the kind of thing that the Germans love doing. They love organizing meetings, bringing people together for discussions, and showing the world that you can do foreign policy without going to war. They made a big effort. They put on an impressive show. This Lübeck event was very well organized. And it's hard to imagine that the big summit in Bavaria in June will be any less well organized.
So Germany's hosting the foreign ministers in Lübeck, or they already hosted the foreign ministers in Lübeck. Then there's the finance ministers in Dresden, and then there's the big summit in Bavaria in June. So Germany really is being very proactive this year. They have a lot on their diplomatic plate, let's say.
That's correct, yes. They've got the presidency of the G7, and with that comes the responsibility of organizing and hosting these meetings. But as is the case with some of these rotating presidencies, some countries take them more seriously than others. And Germany is certainly taking its presidency very seriously this year, and they also have a lot of important topics to discuss. So we can expect the G7 summit in June to be quite a big affair.
So what was your impression from being there?
Well, I've never been to Lübeck before. It is quite a charming city, I've got to say. Very nice medieval buildings and canals running through the city. The venues were very good, and the whole event, as I said, was very well organized. A little bit frustrating for reporters, as these events always are, because the access is very limited. The organizers make sure that they feed journalists a steady sort of drip of statements, and occasionally you get to ask one foreign minister or the other some questions, but there's not much opportunity to chase diplomats down the hallways that you might have at the UN and such like. But nevertheless, it was a sort of compact 24 hours of reporting and not really disrupted much by protesters. The demonstrations were quite limited this time. I expect that to change in Bavaria in June.
And that was Frank Jordans, a correspondent for Associated Press, speaking to us there earlier in the week. You can find him on Twitter at Wire Reporter if you want more of his reporting from Germany and Europe. So, Rob, what's coming up next?
Next is this week's News in Brief.
Okay, are you ready?
I am.
Then let's get started.
This past week on Friday, Germany's Interior Minister, Thomas de Maizière of the Conservative CDU party, made a request to the governments of the Bundesländer. He asked for the individual states to speed up the process of deportation for those not legally allowed to be in the country. He went on to say that the faster deportation procedures made by the federal government would be wasted if the state governments did nothing to actively enforce the removal of the rejected asylum applicants. Many of the Bundesländer are unhappy with the level of federal support. They claim they are slowed down by the lack of resources for issues such as housing. At this time, Germany is accepting more asylum seekers than any other country in Europe. On April 17th, Cologne's cathedral held a memorial service for the victims of the Germanwings plane crash. Over 1,000 mourners came to the service, including victims' friends and families, as well as President Joachim Gauck and Chancellor Angela Merkel. Gauck was the main speaker at this service. He spoke to the attendees about how those who died continue to affect the lives of others. He said the lives of the victims' relatives had been changed forever and would never be the same again. He also thanked those in France who helped with the recovery operation of the plane after it fell into their country. When the service was over, attendees left flowers and candles on the stairs outside of the cathedral. For years, the Bundestag had considered various plans for telecom companies to keep data on what website users visit or calls that they make. The federal government has now come up with a much more firm proposal that clearly sets defined limits on how long data can be stored. German Justice Minister Heiko Maas and Thomas de Maizière, the Interior Minister, have been debating on how to best solve this issue. On Wednesday, they reached a compromise that will be too far for some and not far enough for others. When it comes to phone and internet usage records in Germany, the new guidelines state that data could be retained for a maximum of 10 weeks. After this time, it must be erased. Location data could be saved for a maximum of 4 weeks. And to make it clear, only metadata can be retained. No actual content of communications can be saved in any way. Moss is confident that this proposal will soon become drafted and reviewed in the Bundestag. Early this past week, Russia removed its ban to deliver military arms to the country of Iran. This was criticized as premature, as Iran is still under international sanctions. The sanctions are staying in place for the time being, despite a recent successful preliminary nuclear control deal negotiated by China, the US, France, Britain, and Germany. Chancellor Angela Merkel has come forward to criticize Russia's decision to remove the arms ban before the other countries have lifted their sanctions against Iran. She said that the countries need to work together in unison to deal with Iran. Removing sanctions too early could compromise the deal. The nuclear deal with Iran is set to go ahead. It will restrict their nuclear activities to only producing energy for civil purposes, and will make it difficult for them to produce a bomb. Their reward will be the gradual lifting of economic sanctions. And that's the news in brief.
So, Rob, okay, I'm gonna ask you a question here. It's so obviously pre-prepared, but I mean, yeah, let's see how it goes. So,
okay,
how can people get a quick and simple way to catch up with the latest from Germany?
Well, you could always sign up for our weekly email newsletter on the website, yes, and you can find out all about what's going on in Germany during the week, in between our show.
And how do they do that?
They can go to our website, thisweekingermany.de, and click the sign up button.
Yes, it's in the sidebar. You just type in your email address, that's it. We don't give your email address to anyone else, and you get weekly updates from This Week in Germany. It's really, really cool. So you would highly recommend it, right?
Up-to-date news.
Yes, that's right. It's very, very good. So, what do we have? Oh, no, you can ask me now. You ask me a question.
Okay, here's the question.
Yes?
What do you think is coming up right now?
Could it be Destination Germany?
A little more enthusiasm there.
Could it be Destination Germany?
Yes, it's Destination Germany! And we're taking you on a journey somewhere in the country that is well worth a visit, whether you're a tourist or a permanent resident, a foreigner or a German citizen. We'll be here covering the famous sites, as well as those little-known corners of Deutschland. All that matters is showing you that Germany is an interesting and exciting place to visit. So, if you enjoy the destinations that we talk about each week, go to our website, thisweekingermany.de, and we'll have photos of each week's destination.
So, last week's destination, which we'll just recap before we get into this week's exciting destination, it did very well on Facebook, I tell you.
I'm glad people liked it. I'm very happy that people liked it. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I posted it on Facebook, and it was like, I know, thousands of people read it. So, like, lots of people liked it and shared it, but behind the scenes, you can see, when you're logged in to Facebook, you can see how many people saw it, and loads of people really liked this. So, we learned about this, basically, the coolest place in Berlin for the hottest days, basically a temperature-controlled pool that is built into the River Spree. So, you're swimming on the River Spree, not in the Spree. So that's the river that runs through the capital city. And even if swimming isn't really your thing, you still might want to give this Badeschiff, or bathing ship, as it's known in English, you might want to give it a look, because there's a whole variety of different events there and parties, and they have like a beach there and barbecue evenings and concerts and everything.
I think we should check it out.
Yeah, it's really
this
definitely
summer,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, what better than to be bathing in a river, but except not in the river, actually in some clean water, which is temperature controlled. So you get the best of both worlds. You feel like you're swimming in the river, but you're actually not. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So go to thisweekingermany.de to have a look at the pictures of that, and to read all about it, and to listen to the clip from last week's program. But
that was last week.
Yeah, that was last week. We're going somewhere different this week.
Well, this week we're going to go back to the state of Bavaria, and in fact to the capital city, Munich. Our destination this week will be Munich's Stadtmuseum, the city's municipal museum that also happens to be the largest city museum in all of Germany.
Okay, now you got my attention because, there's lots of museums in Germany and they're very interesting, a lot of them. But this is the largest city museum in all of Germany. That's pretty cool. So, a lot of people, when they think of Munich, they think about Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
And this kind of thing. But there's a lot more to Munich than that.
Yeah, we haven't really done that much about Munich, and Munich does have a lot of really cool places to go. And I thought telling you about the city, like the actual city's museum, would be a good place to start.
So, no better place than beginning and visiting the city museum to learn about a city. So that's a great idea. So if you want to learn about Munich, I guess this is the kind of place that you go to. So what does the Stadtmuseum have to offer?
First, this is no rinky-dink, quaint little museum. As I mentioned,
rinky-dink.
Yeah, it's the city's museum that tells you all about Munich, and it's also the biggest city museum in all of Germany. It consists of several wings and has multiple permanent exhibitions, as well as a few limited time special exhibitions that go on almost year-round, so things that are changing.
That's very nice. So what are the permanent exhibitions?
Well, there are currently 4 permanent exhibitions that I want to give you a clip glimpse of what each one is. First, there's one called Typically Munich, and this exhibit gets a lot of attention from visitors, and it tells all about the city of Munich. Learn how the city got started and how it got to what it is today. Aside from the history lesson, you'll also get to learn about what makes the city, give it that personal sort of touch. You can learn about Munich's fashions, traditions, and folklore, and really see what is inside of the city.
That's really cool, because when a lot of people think of a German stereotype, they're actually thinking of Bavarian stereotypes, so the lederhosen and this kind of thing.
The dirndls.
The dirndls. Drindles. So I think a lot of people would be very interested in that. People coming from outside of Germany to see that would be pretty cool. So what are the other permanent exhibitions?
Well, number 2 is a exhibition that's all about musical instruments from all over the world. So this isn't just about Munich, but it is instruments from everywhere. And they have over 6,000 different types of instruments, from very old to very modern. And you might scratch your head at a few of them, wondering how some of them even work.
There's also an exhibition about National Socialism, right? The Nazis.
Yes, you can learn about what's going on pretty much in Munich in terms of National Socialism between 1918 and 1945. And this was the city where it was pretty much the launch pad for the National Socialist movement. And
the last permanent exhibition?
The last one, or at least for now, is a puppet theaters and fairground attractions exhibit.
Oh, that sounds a bit creepy.
So if you like strange, creepy wooden puppets and mechanical contraptions that you might take a few minutes to figure out what they actually do, this is the place for you.
I can't think of anything better.
I personally think it looks amazing.
Okay, so there are also some special exhibitions as well. So, what can people see around about now or in the near future?
Well, there's a few that are going on right now, and like I said, this place is really big. Right, 2 of them are both photographers that take portraits of people that are not quite in the mainstream. One photographer is showing people that are kind of on the fringes of society, maybe people that are from mental institutions or just work way out in the middle of nowhere. And the other focuses on runaways, homeless, and punk rockers.
Okay.
There's also something I think is really cool, is there's a sound lab that is a part of the music section of the museum that I was telling you about earlier. And here you can test out a bunch of different types of instruments and just an experiment with a lot of different ways to create different types of sounds.
Have you been to Munich before?
I have only been there for a few hours. It was kind of like a train layover. So we got to spend a little bit of time in the city, just kind of wandering around and looking at things, but I never really got to really dive into the city and see what makes it up.
Yeah, the same with me. I wasn't there for very long, but when I was there, it looks really beautiful. Munich is a great city to go to, so I highly recommend it for all you tourists based in Germany, or if you're planning a trip, then include Munich in your trip as well.
And for the destination, if you want to find out more about what the Munich Stadtmuseum looks like, go to our website, thisweekingermany.de, and we'll have some photos up there to show you what it looks like.
Next up, our German of the Week section, where we put the spotlight on a prominent person from this week's news, a German citizen, or even a foreigner who we deem an honorary German, who has had an effect, for better or worse, on German culture, society, or politics.
This episode's German of the Week is literature Nobel Prize-winning Günter Grass. He was a novelist, a poet, a playwright, an illustrator, a graphic artist, a sculptor, and much more. I say was because he passed away this past week on April 13th. When Grass was young, he was drafted into the Second World War in 1944. He ended up becoming a prisoner of war for a year and then released. When he started training as a sculptor and a stonemason, just a few years later, he started his calling, which was writing. He was well known for some of his early works that were part of a series called the Danzig Trilogy. Grass was born in the free city of Danzig, which is now part of Poland. These fictional books focus on the interwar and wartime periods of the city. The first of the series is called The Tin Drum and was later made into a movie with the same name. Most of Grass's work is based around the Second World War and the effects that it had on the country and the German people. He was a strong supporter of the Social Democratic Party, and his writing reflected his political beliefs. In the past 10 years, Grass has been part of some controversy with his release of the autobiography titled Peeling the Onion. It was revealed that when Grass was drafted into the army, he was part of the notorious Waffen-SS, if only for about 2 months. When this came out, some that had seen him as a strong critic of Germany's past now saw him as a hypocrite, though many argued he was simply a teenager with no alternative and supported his decision to write openly about it. Günter Grass died this week at age 87. This Nobel Prize-winning artist has left the world as one of Germany's most famous literary icons.
And now we're at the end of episode number 68.
Wow. 68 episodes.
Yeah, I know,
Pretty
right?
crazy.
Yeah, so it's a good one. Remember to like it on Facebook and favorite it in Twitter and share it with your friends, because that's how we reach more listeners. And that is the best way that you can support This Week in Germany, is simply to like us and share us and all of that kind of stuff. Because the more listeners we have, the more motivated we are to give up hours and hours of our free time every single week to bring you this wonderful program.
It doesn't cost you anything, just a couple seconds to hit that like button or to share it with your friends. And if you want to, write us a review on iTunes. We definitely love those as well.
Yeah, and there's also now a brand new donation button on our website. In the sidebar at the bottom, you can see there, donation. There's a Flatter button as well, for those of you who know what Flatter is. But if you don't know what that is, it's okay. You can do the completely normal donation way on there too and support us, because we love you and we love doing this program every single week. So yeah, let's continue that into the distant future. This Week in Germany is produced by me, Daniel Winter, and it is written by and presented by myself and Rob Bishop. Thank you very much to Frank Jordans, the reporter from Associated Press, who talked to us this week. You can find him on Twitter at Wire Reporter. So, Rob, anything else to mention before we sign off for this week?
No.
Okay, well, all of the links that you need for all of the social media and the pictures and everything like that, you should know the website by now. It's thisweekingermany.de. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next Monday with more of This Week in Germany.